Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Leap. I'm always so grateful for all of you who tune in to hear these really sometimes just profoundly life-changing stories. And today I have two incredible guests with me. We have been talking like crazy before we started recording, and so I'm very excited to introduce all of my listeners to Dana and Amy. So let's start with you, Dana. I'm going to give a brief bio of each to introduce you guys. So Dana Rivera is the mother of 5, grandmother of 6, wife of 1, and teacher of many. She was born and raised in South Louisiana and desires nothing more than spending time with friends and family. She is a reluctant runner and lives in Lafayette, Louisiana with her husband, Jim, and dog, Nabi.
Yes, ma'am.
And she is currently writing her first book, This Is Not What I Expected. Dana also lost her young son to cancer in 2016,
15.
2015.
Yes. Yes.
And we will be talking about your son, Parker. And then with us also, we have Amy Wineland Daughters. She is a native Houstonian and a graduate of the Texas Tech University, which is wild because that is where my nephew also graduated from and my niece. And Amy has been a freelance writer for the past decade, mostly covering college football, but sometimes talking about her feelings. And her debut novel, You Cannot Mess This Up, it's a true story that never happened. It's the best title ever. And that book was selected as the silver winner of humor in 2019 Forward Indies and the overall winner for humor comedy in the 2020 Next Generation Indie Awards. Congratulations on that, Amy. She's an amateur historian, hat golfer, delusional model, and a regular on the ribbon dancing circuit.
Right.
Amy is a proud former resident of Blackwell, England, Dayton, Ohio, and currently resides. It is at Tomball, Texas. I've never heard of Tomball, Texas.
Yes,
It's a
Tomball,
suburb.
Texas.
It's a suburb of Houston. And she is married to a foxy computer person, Willie, and the mother of 2 amazing sons, Will and Matthew. Welcome, you guys. I am beyond thrilled to have you both here today. Okay, so this is a magical story. I have heard some of it. So let me just preface this by saying that these 2 ladies met in 1986 as camp counselors, and they made a fast connection but lost touch over many, many years. And they reunited in 2019 when Amy sent a Facebook friend request to Dana. I am going to stop with that because the rest of it is far too exciting to just sort of sum up. So let's start with you, Dana. Why don't you go ahead and talk to us from your perspective, because this is where I think the story begins after you got that friend request.
Yes, and thank you so much for having us to share our story. We're always thrilled to share it. Amy and I, like you said, met, and it was actually in 2015 or 14 that I got a friend request from her on Facebook. I thought it was kind of weird because I recognized Amy Wineland. I hadn't thought about her since camp, but then Daughters is kind of a strange last name, and her profile picture was weird because she likes to do those kind of shenanigans. And so I was like, is this legit? And so then I kind of stalked it, and it was. And I was like, oh, that's that girl from camp. So I accepted the friend request. And she immediately messaged me. She found out that my son, Parker, who was 15, was being treated for cancer at St. Jude's in Memphis. And she texted me to say that, or messaged me through Facebook that she was praying. Not only was she praying, she had a team of people praying, and that they would be constantly holding us and in prayer and wanting the best. Time goes on. Parker relapsed in December of 2014. And I get this card to Parker and Dana at the Ronald McDonald House where we were living. And it was from Amy, and it was a little note: Parker, keeping you up, boy, keep your spirits up. You got this. And it was sweet notes to me. And Parker was like, who is that? I said, oh, this girl from camp. And he's like, so why? Like, when's the last time you saw her? And I said, oh, 30 years ago. He's like, wow, So then the next week we get a card, and the next week we get a card. And then we lost Parker in January of 2015. And we came back home. We were home a couple of weeks, and we got an envelope from the Ronald McDonald House, and it was several cards that had been mailed. Amy also messaged me on Facebook when she saw that Parker had passed. And so the cards, then 2 weeks later, my husband gets a card at work. She had looked up his address, his name, and found a work address. And so for the next, until April of 2015, she would send cards every single week, and the notes got longer and longer. And then they were to the back of the card about how she was holding us in prayer. And in April of 2015, I said, I need to write this girl back, you know?
So
And
Dana, let me stop you for a second.
Yeah.
So you get this friend request in 2014, and Amy, I want to ask you, I don't want you to go into detail yet, but I want to just ask you, how did you know, Dana, did you tell Amy that Parker was sick? How did you know that this was happening?
Well, I knew because once I friend requested her, I went and looked, did the obligatory stalk through her page, and looked, and a lot of her posts were about Parker and his treatment and asking people to pray for them. And so
how
that's
did you
I
get?
got
How did
involved.
you know her address? How did you know about Ronald McDonald? Was that all through Facebook? Did you just sort
Right, all of it through Facebook? And it was amazing, Susan, because she posted when he relapsed and they were going back. I had kind of gotten the idea. So I was inspired. I was like, I'm going to start writing him letters. I'm a writer. That's what I'm going to do. And it was just some silly idea that came to mind, really. And like 24 hours after I got the idea, she literally has put a post up and said, and here's the address at the Ronald McDonald House, just in case. And I was like, boom, wait a second. This could be part of something bigger. True story.
wow, that one just caught me. Like, this is the serendipitous, the grace, right? The grace that we live in when we really are open to it. So Amy, you just started doing this just as a whim, like, oh, I think I'm just going to start writing this woman letters that I knew back in, 37 years ago. Like,
yeah. Well, my part of the story too is I had always, I met Jim, Dana's husband, the summer before I met Dana. And I don't remember really anything from our 7 weeks together, except for we both have huge personalities. But her name did stick with me. And I would always wonder, oh, what happened? I wonder what happened with Dana. And I think that was put in my heart for a reason. And then when I friended Dana and started watching her story, I could feel myself kind of going, and Dana will attest to this. I was going over the edge. I cared more about this whole story than would have been normal for me or any other normal person. And I felt so compelled throughout our connection that I kind of, how you don't know what you're doing in life most of the time. I don't know what I'm doing in life like 99.9%
I
of the time.
almost never know either.
Yeah. But I knew what to do. I just went with it. Like I knew and as soon as I decided I was going to write them, then I was going to write them. And that's because this was all in my opinion, this was all God just lining me up where I was supposed to be,
Yeah.
And then I just started writing the letters, and I just knew that's what I was supposed to do. That's the only way I can explain it. Even though there was a part of me that's like, you're crazy. This is crazy behavior. She's going to think you're crazy. But I just kept doing it.
And Dana, you thought she was crazy, right? Like,
Right.
are you just like, why do I keep getting cards from this woman?
I didn't. I know she's crazy now. Listen, I think we're on like 7 or 8 years at this point. She is definitely crazy. But, that was not my perception getting the letters and the cards. I just thought in the beginning, the first, say, 6, 8, 12 weeks, I thought it was really thoughtful. I was like, wow, this is so nice. But then after about 3 months, I started looking for them. I started going to the mailbox. They usually arrived on Friday. She was living in Ohio at the time. And if it wasn't there on Friday, I found myself disappointed. Oh, well, lo and behold, it would be there Saturday. And my daughter, who was in law school at the time, who was commuting back and forth just to be with us, said, Mom, how long do you think she's going to do this? And I said, I don't know, but I hope it never stops. And when I realized that,
How long had that been going on when you really
we were at month 5.
month
We were at month
5?
5.
And so,
And
Amy, when you were writing these letters, did you do it intentionally at the same time every week so that she would be getting these letters?
Well, that's what that blows me away too, because I'm a writer, and at the time I was writing college football for the Bleacher Report, and I would have like they give me a topic on Sunday and it'd be due Monday, and then I'd have a Tuesday for a Wednesday and a Thursday for a Friday. So I just made Dana my Sunday for the Monday mail out. So I just put her on the schedule because that's how I work. And I had no idea that at the other end of the letter that she was waiting for. And it's funny because we were about 8 months in, and I had a letter returned to me. And I literally, my son can attest to this, I lost every bit of my mind because I was like, I am supposed to get these letters out. He's like, you were behaving irrationally. I was like, no. And I literally went and mailed it priority today. And I didn't know she was waiting for it. I just felt on my end of the transaction that this is what I was supposed to do. So that story amazes me though, Dana, that you've told me that, but hearing it again, that's,
you're so like, it's that soul connection, right? I mean, your soul sisters.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And so wait. Then, so Dana, your son, and I'm so sorry that your son died, and then you leave the Ronald McDonald House. But Amy, do you know, are you aware that they've gone home and your letters keep going to the Ronald McDonald House?
Well, I think that was a backlog, probably because I knew when Parker passed because Dana posted about it, and I assumed they had returned home. And I actually had a moment of like, what am I supposed to do now? And it was just kind of a clear message. You're just going to keep writing the letters and you're going to keep praying, And so then I stalked Jim, found his address at his work. And I just kept writing the letters, again, compelled to do it for no other reason, but I absolutely 1,000% knew that that's what I was supposed to do.
Okay. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear, because Dana, you said that you got all this backlog from Ronald McDonald. Was that backlog all from Amy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
it was probably 2 or 3 cards, but they were consecutive of each week. And I do believe probably when she found out about Parker, I do believe the next 1 or 2 were probably mailed there, hoping that it would be forwarded. And then it was after that we started receiving them at Jim's office.
Okay. So let's slow down, because the whole point of this podcast is the transformations that come out of deep grief. And when a parent loses a child, no one can describe that depth of grief, right? It's unimaginable. It's unimaginable for people who have never lost a child. So Dana, what when you are in the depths of, well, first this incredible all-consuming worry while your son is being treated, you're getting these letters, it's something for you to look forward to. In like the vision I get is sort of like this little poke of light that you're getting in this very dark time. Now you lose your son, you go home to this reality. What are these letters doing for you? And what do they say?
Well, in the beginning, and I would say like the first maybe 4 to 5 months, first of all, what they did for me, I'll start with that. What they did for me is they gave me something to look forward to. I'll be honest with you. We were showered, surrounded, immersed in love. We have a community in our town. We're a bigger town, we're 130,000 people, but I had 5 children and I'm a teacher. And, that's a lot of people, kids and sports and, blah, blah, blah. We were immersed in love the entire journey from the second that Parker was diagnosed until right now, today. And we felt that love, but in the first year, we chose to avoid that love. And I don't mean we didn't but we didn't, we're very social people. We go, we do, we go and below. The fact that I have time for this podcast is shocking. We are high energy. And we spent that first year, that energy wasn't there. We didn't crave it. We didn't desire it. All we wanted to do was be around our children. And our children felt that. I had a daughter that was married, and actually she had a baby, which was such a gift. And we just, enjoyed that. And we accepted visitors, obviously, but we also were very good. I'd never been good at saying no to things. I felt like I owed people just in life. If I'm invited somewhere, I need to be there. But we got very good at saying thank you so much, but we're going to have to pass. We also got professional at making plans to cancel plans. And so from day to day, we would wake up, I stayed out for 8 weeks. My husband went back to work after probably 2, but, day in and day out, it was sad. It was awful. It was depressing. And so going to the mailbox on Thursday or Friday just put a little spring in my step that wasn't there. It added light. And I not only did I look forward to it, my kids did, because they would read them too, and my husband, but I was always the first to read it, and then they could read it. And so the letters basically started off with, I know things, I don't know how things are, but I want you all to know that you are being covered in prayer every single hour of the day, that I can't imagine what this journey is like. I hope that you know that these aren't just words that I'm saying. Not her. She loves to use blah, blah, blah. And she does blah, blah, blah a lot. But, she was like, this is not blah, blah. Like, this is real. And then she would always sign #constant. I was not a hashtagger. I thought that was for the young kids. And so she would sign #constant. And then she would say, we have a team of people praying for you. And then she starts introducing there are real people. She has taken friends of hers in Ohio, all over the world, England, whatever. And she has explained our situation to them and asked them if they wanted to be a part of the constant team for the Riveras. And she told them, this is not, we want you to pray for these people and think about these people. No, she had a list of obligations. If you commit to being on the constant team, this is what is expected of you. I cannot believe how many people, Amy? 50, 60?
Yeah.
Okay,
100.
so I need to, I'm going to cut that and I'm going to go to you, Amy. So you decide, can you just please help us to understand like your heart, where you were coming from, what you knew to write, like, and then this team, talk to us about, I just need to hear from you what is happening on your end while you've got Dana waiting for these letters from this person.
Right.
What's happening for you?
Well, I'm continuing to tell myself this is, erratic behavior. But again, I just felt so committed that I kept writing, and I did write about prayer, and the letters got longer because I began just to introduce her to my life, and tell her things about my non-exciting life. And she knows more about me probably than anyone in the world, because I've written so many words to her just to fill in the blanks, and then when she started writing me back, we became pen pals. And
when did you get from the time that you sent the first card, when did you get the first letter back? And also you must have been like, oh my God, I got a letter back. Tell us about that.
And and I always refer to getting the first letter. It was probably 5 or 6 months. I got it on my birthday. I went out to the mailbox at my house, And, you know, you're in our era, there's not a lot of cards or anything being sent. So I didn't expect anything. I was at the house by myself and I opened the mailbox, and on the very top, and I didn't know her handwriting at the time, it was a letter, a handwritten letter, and it had one of those little fancy stamps, and it said Rivera, Jim and Dana Rivera. And I was like, holy mother of all that's good in the world, she wrote me back. And I held that letter in my hands, and I have it in my office. Like, it was the most precious thing I had ever seen. And I literally pranced back to my house. Now, Dana will wait to read my letters. I ripped that thing open right then and there, sat down, and it was like devouring like the best meal of your life, because she had written me back, and that sparked this life-changing pen pal relationship where we did share about our feelings. I talked a lot about prayer, and I blah, 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 Dana. But we just shared so much. She shared her life, I shared my life, and it became this release for me, you know, where I was looking at my life from the outside in at the same time that I was absolutely praying for, you know, the Rivera family and letting them know that every week.
Okay, so I just want to cherish every single morsel of this story. So, okay, so you get the letter back from Dana, and it sounds to me like, and then this letter exchange ensued, right? You'd write, she'd write. Okay, when did you decide you were going to get this team together for Dana? Was that prior to that first letter? When did that happen?
No, I think it was after, because Dana writing me back kind of, it took it to another level for me, because then it was like, you know, when someone responds to what you're doing, then you're like, okay. And I'm way over the top. Both Dana and I's personalities are way over the top.
Because at this point, you don't even know if she's reading your letters that you're sending.
No, I have
right? I mean, they could be in the trash for all you know.
Well, and that's what's magical about the whole thing. So when she wrote me back, and I started thinking, you know, because I had said the whole constant thing, hashtag constant meant you were always being prayed for. And I thought, you know, and I didn't tell everyone this whole story until the story was well developed. Like, I didn't tell any of my friends to probably 6 months, 5 months into the story. And I was like, if you're going to promise constant prayer, you're going to have some other people involved. And I started thinking how constant prayer really could work is if you had a whole bunch of people praying. And I knew Dana had this, I didn't know, but I assumed Dana had a support system. And so this was just my little part of the support system. And so that's when I started asking other people do it. And then I'm over the top. So I formed a team, and we had membership cards, and, you know, and then it was completely over the top. We had lanyards. I mean, because that's me, you know,
But what were they doing? So they were praying, but what else were they doing?
Well, and the other thing, if you signed up, the first thing you had to do is you had to give me a message for them. And I thought, since we were just electronic, I mean, we were not electronically communicating, I was like, I'm gonna introduce the Riveras to these people. And I promised Dana in a letter, I was like, okay, every other week, because I didn't think I could do every week, I'm going to introduce you to one of these people. So, and I'm not very crafty, and I wish I was, but I took out a note card, and I have a vintage typewriter because I love all vintage communication. And I typed out like a bio, like it was like a baseball card, except for it was people who were praying, or like a non-electronic Facebook profile. And so I wrote all their deets on the front, you know, how I was related, I mean, how I knew them, like their whole story. And on the back, I typed up whatever their message was to the Riveras. And these people, the things they said, the way they showed up, and that was the first thing. So that's how Dana and Jim got introduced to these people on these janky cards that I highlighted, the stuff with my college football highlighters. I mean, and I had no idea this was going to become a thing, or I would have made it look way better.
Okay, so Dana, so at this point, are you writing back every single week now too?
No, I never have. No.
Okay.
I was more of a, you know, for a while there, I was pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Maybe every other week, every third week, you know, definitely. She was every week, but I've never been every week.
And at this point, I just want to make clear, I know this because you two told me, but at this point, there has been nothing beyond letters, no phone call, no texting, and that was that intentional? Did it become like this sort of like?
No, it was not intentional at all. I mean, you know, at this point, we're talking 2016. Now we've been doing this like 2 years basically. And I don't even know her phone number. I don't know if, she's rich or poor. I don't know if
Wait,
she's
the
right or left.
the letters lasted for 2 years before you told
Yes, only written letters. I don't know if she's vegan. I don't know.
Okay,
Good
so
question.
well, it seems like you would have put that very important piece of information in one of your letters.
But no. Let me tell you, that's a point that it wasn't. Really, there was no political. There was no. This is what I believe. It was. I'm redoing my kitchen. Here's some pictures.
Yeah.
It's very surface level.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
surface level though, like your BFFs that live next door to
Yes.
each other, right?
No,
Yes.
totally. But we
Yeah.
did share, because we began to share on another level, because
Yes.
you shared about your grief, and then
That's what I
shared
was
about
going to ask. Were you
Yeah.
writing about your grief? That's what
Yes.
I was getting to.
Yes. Yes. Very much. And it was a place that I could go to share that felt safe, unjudged. I had not laid eyes on her in 30 something years. So if this was too much, oh well, what have I lost? But it was almost, and I'll tell you, the letters became like diary entries almost for both of us.
Mhm.
And so, also it was a place, grief is different for every single person. And it was certainly different for my husband and I, for my daughters and I. And, you don't want to bring the room down. When the room is okay, not even up, but when the room is up and you get washed away suddenly in the grief, you go to another room and act like you're going to the bathroom because you don't want to bring the room down. With Amy, I didn't worry about bringing the room down. It was just that moment in my journey that I needed to share with somebody. And not that my husband and I certainly, shared our grief. We went to grief counseling. We certainly shared it. But, there were certain times, and I know that he did the same and my children did the same. If someone's having a decent day and you get overcome with this, you don't want to mention it because you don't want to bring down everybody in the room. And Amy those letters were a safe place to do that.
It's interesting. My listeners know this because I've talked about it numerous times, but my whole dissertation was on writing through grief, loss, and trauma. As a matter of fact, when I got my MFA in writing, and I'm launching a course next month on a grief and loss course on writing through your grief, loss, and trauma. And so it is, there is so much science and research out there, and I'm sure, Amy, you're very aware of this. Novelists and memoirs, they've been doing this forever, right? You're writing through trauma and grief.
Right.
And so
I'm glad it may be a side note. I tend to do those types of things. Sorry, but I'm so glad to hear you say that, because you said that you're a counselor as well. Okay. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because we quit going to grief counseling because I was writing Parker. And the grief counselor told me, what do you think that's going to do? I'm like, it makes me feel better. Well, it's not going to bring him back. I was like, bye-bye. See ya.
These are really hard for me to hear because I've heard numerous stories. I think that this is one area in grief and loss for therapists who don't really understand it. Because in interviewing a lot of people who lost their sibling, who never went back to a therapist. So it's very near and dear to my heart. And I'm sorry to hear that was your experience. Amy, what was going on with you when you were, because I'm sure all of my listeners like me want to hear, can we hear a piece of a letter? Do you guys have, and I know that you have written an entire book, which we're going to lead into that in a moment, but is there a piece of a letter that we can hear out loud that?
Yeah, I can, I have the book. Do you have a book with you, Dana?
Oh, I can get one in 2 seconds.
Because we could read that.
I'd love.
We could read an exchange between the two of us in writing.
Let me please. Oh, I would love that.
Let me see. I have my copy right here.
Oh, don't
So
you?
Can you hold that book up for the world to see? Because dear Dana, I mean, I want to bawl my eye. I cannot wait to read this book. So
yeah.
when did this book come out? Has it
It
come out
came
yet?
out, it came out in May of last year. So it's
May
not,
of last year. Okay.
yeah. So it's, yeah, we're 6 months in probably. So
I just absolutely can't wait to buy it.
yeah, and then look, I'll show you this. Look who I got a letter from 2 days ago from Dana. Isn't that great?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Still on my
Yep.
desk, friend.
Are you still writing letters to each other?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys,
Okay,
I
but
love
here's
you.
the no, this is nuts. This is nuts. We see each other once a month. She now lives, like you said, in Tomball, so she's only 4 hours from me. We see each other at least once a month. We speak on the phone 5 times a week on my way to work. We call it the podcast, and we go over, like, I tell her what my exercise regimen was, what I ate. I had 2 glasses of wine instead of one, dog it. This is what's going on. They're family now, but she still writes me every single week. And it's Dear Dana, but it's really Dear Diary.
It is. What's the
Okay.
chapter? What chapter is that, Dana?
Yep. I
You
want to
remember?
hear an exchange. And then I don't want you guys to let me forget, because what I want to know is when you cross the threshold from letter writing to having an actual conversation. But I want you
Oh.
guys to tell me now before you read the excerpt. When did that happen? You've been writing letters for 5 months. You finally got a letter back from Dana, Amy.
Right.
When did the two of you, after Dana started writing, you wrote for 2 years, I think you said,
Mhm.
and then what happened? Who said, hey, let's have when did it dawn on you guys to have a conversation?
Well, and we this is a great story though, because she invited my family. We lived in Ohio. They do the St. Jude Marathon in Memphis every year. And she had said in a letter within those 2 years of writing, she said, y'all have to come one time. And I said, I remember writing, well, I'll absolutely come, wherever you want me to come. And then she sent an email and said to a group of people and said, if you want to come, here's kind of the deal with the marathon. And I took the email, sent it to my husband. I was like, what do you think? And he's like, okay. And I sent it back to her and I said, we're in. Then she offered a hotel room because they fundraised for St. Jude for us to come. And that's how it all played out. And it was this magical moment in Memphis, Tennessee. And we hadn't spoken on the phone. Right before that meeting, I called her for the very first time, right before I was going to go to the lobby of the hotel she was at and meet her for the first time. I called her. That's the first time I'd heard her voice. And I was like, and my heart was literally in my mouth, and then we walk across town and we go to the lobby of the Peabody Hotel in Memphis and we meet for the first time in 30 years. And then after that,
what was it like when you saw each other? Was it just like two women who just knew each other's hearts? What happened?
Well, I write about this in the book, and it really wasn't I think we were already so bonded through the letters. I mean, it was like a big hug. And then it was just like, and you can comment on this, Dana, we were just in step. I mean, we were in sync. It was like, we stepped away from that moment, that hug. And it was just like, okay, now we're just going to go do the rest of our life like this. Like, she's going to be large and in charge. I'm going to be obnoxious. I'm going to dance and slap my butt and then tell her I'm praying for her. And then we're going to go on this great adventure together. And and she's going to tell me what to do. And it's going to be the best thing that ever happened.
And it is. And now you guys together have raised over $600,000 for the St. Jude, right? Is that?
Oh, we've done more than that.
Yeah, that's more. Yeah, that's more Dana than me.
That's what we have done, Amy included, being a part of Team Parker, but through Amy's husband's business, I guess I can share this, Amy?
Sure.
Okay. So through Amy's husband's business, a little side note, my daughter number 3, works full-time for St. Jude fundraising in the fundraising arm of the organization. And because we lost everything, but we will live our life raising money, because every good thing you've ever thought or heard about St. Jude, it's a million times better. So through Amy's husband's company, they have committed to $7 million over 10 years. And because of that, there's a new housing facility being built right now. And because St. Jude is such a large organization and is such, they need so much money because the treatment is free and it is, the top treatment in the world. If you want something named forever for someone, the only way you can do that is with millions and millions of dollars. So in this new housing facility, there will be the Parker Rivera Family Activity Room forever because of the company that her husband works for, committing to $7 million in fundraising. So we're pretty proud.
This story is it's so magical. Of coming out of this deep despair, like what you guys are telling me is just, I can't describe how it's actually hitting me right now. So can you guys, I'm going to cry.
Yes,
so can you guys read your excerpts?
What chapter is it, Dana?
Amy, 19, November 2016.
Okay, let me get it here.
The book doesn't have page
Okay,
numbers.
so
Well,
wait
yeah,
a second, just so we know, is this the first time, Amy? Is this the first time? Is this the exchange? Tell
This okay, so this is right before we meet.
Okay,
This is
right before
about
you meet.
a month or a little bit more than a month before we meet.
So we've been
November-
writing for two years at this point.
Yes. So this
Right.
is November 2016.
And then when
So-
do you meet? You meet when? This is
In
November.
December of 2016.
Okay,
Right.
a month before.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. So we're just going to read the chapter back and
Yeah,
forth. And
please.
It's a short little.
No, it's
it'll-
great. I can't wait.
all right. We haven't done this in a while, friend.
I know.
All right. Chapter 19, November 2016. The first week of November, I received 2 letters from Dana, both postmarked the first day of the month. The first was a response to Will and Matthew, my sons, who had thought it was a good idea. It would be a good idea if Dana and I each shared 5 things about ourselves that we hadn't mentioned before. I had sent my 5 things to her in a card that the 2 of them had picked out themselves. She began her letter by saying, "Please tell your boys I love the card, and here they go," and then listed her 5 things.
Number 1, I have run 8 marathons. Number 2, I am addicted to decorating. Number 3, I love my job and my school. Number 4, I am always on a diet and have never lost weight. Number 5, I have met lots of celebrities.
Because my sons instigated the list, I decided I'd share Dana's reply with them. It was the only letter that I read aloud in its entirety to my immediate family. I remember vividly all of us sitting in our family room as I read Dana's response. At the beginning, it seemed like a solemn event, reading the words of the person we were all praying for because she had lost her son. Just as I hadn't been revealed in living flesh to the Riveras, we also didn't know Dana in the physical realm yet. This was especially true for Willie and our boys because they hadn't been exchanging letters and therefore thoughts and feelings with Dana.
I love my job and my school. I've been at Broadmoor 11 years and it feels like home. I am the official cheerleader and I plan 4 really big deal good behavior pep rallies each year. The younger kids see me in the hall after the first pep rally and act like I'm a movie star. They're like, "Hey, there she is." I'm supposed to be at work at 7:40 a.m., but almost daily I pass my principal at 7:45-ish with coffee in my hand and bid her good morning. She has never said a word and has been nothing short of total support and love through all of this. She also loved Parker.
Dana's ability in writing and in person to combine levity, dialogue, vivid descriptions, and thought-provoking material into a single narrative draws people in. I could see the early stages of this impact on Will and Matthew as I read her words to them. On one hand, they laughed out loud. On the other, they also walked away from the experience having learned something. It was, in fact, their very first interaction with Dana. She began her second letter by thanking me for a card I had bought in Cleveland when I had visited with Will after the 2016 Republican National Convention. As was now my practice, I was always looking for cards for Dana. So even a short trip was in part a quest for something new to send her. She used the unique theme of the card as a starting point for a discussion on her political views, for the most part founded on her experience as a teacher. It's key to remember that at this point, we still hadn't spoken in 30 years. And since we also weren't doing 2-way instantaneous communication, We could both pick whatever topic that came up and then go with it. For the most part, we didn't even have a clue about where the other person stood on any issue.
After 25 years of teaching, I know this. We are all the same. Children don't see color or religion. They see a playmate at recess. There are those parents who don't care, won't show up, won't pay for fees, provide supplies, or even get their kids up for school. For those, the teacher, at least at my school, buy the supplies, do the project at recess, give the child an alarm clock, buy their uniform supplies, or whatever is needed.
Dana closed the letter with words that, once again, humbled me to my core.
Amy, you are sharing the light of Christ that could only be ordained by God himself. I don't understand it, nor why we have to walk this path. But I do know Parker knows about this. And I know that one day we will understand. Until then, know that every word you write matters. Love you, Dana.
Regardless of what Dana and I hoped our words would do for each other, the process of writing about our lives, sharing all the little and big details, the main and supporting characters, had a way of putting things in order. My letters to Dana didn't only give her a window into my world, they allowed me to view my own life from the outside. Writing it all down within the safe and freeing confines of non-electronic communication gave me the opportunity to connect dots that I didn't even know needed connecting. I can only hope that for her, our pen paling has spawned similar results. Communicating regularly and honesty in writing with another human being can change your perspective on every single aspect of your life.
I just feel an amen. That's all I want to say to that. Because what I was thinking when you were reading was, and you ended on that note, Amy, I was thinking about what the letter writing was doing for you during this whole time, even when Dana wasn't writing you back. Because I'm sure people are like, wow, to think about writing every single week for 5 months and not getting anything in return is incredible. It feels deeply spiritual, almost like a calling beyond your control, that something was propelling you to write these letters and talk about not being attached to the outcome. I mean, this is just such a remarkable, beautiful example of really following and listening to that deeper calling, that higher voice, whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it God, your soul, it doesn't matter. Because for many of us, we could get so trapped in our ego, write a few letters and be like, okay, I'm all done with that, because there was no instant gratification of anything coming back. The gratification was through the giving, right? Am I right? I mean, I don't want to put words into your mouth.
No, I think that's a good way of putting it. Like I said, I felt so compelled that the only way I can explain it is I could not have stopped had I wanted to. And that's why it's all a higher power. The whole story is, and whatever you want to call that, you can call that, but that's what it was, because I had to do it.
And so let's take the story to the next level now, because you guys also told me something else remarkable that came out of this, where you, Amy, decided that you were going to write all of your Facebook friends. And I'm very interested in hearing about this, because I have a lot of Facebook friends and don't know where many of them even live. So can you now bring this sort of full circle, and where in this process of your friendship with Dana, when the idea came to write to all of your Facebook friends, because that's part of the book. That's the two narratives are woven together. And it's funny, because when I wrote the book, a couple of people I talked to, they were like, that's two separate stories. And what people have to realize, though, is these are two stories that don't happen, without each other, because I wouldn't have written one letter to anyone else had I not. It wasn't just me writing the letters, but the key moment in this story, Susan, is Dana writing me back. Dana writing me back is the pivotal moment. I totally got that. Yeah, I got that anyway, just listening to the two of you, that something happened.
Right. Because this run with the Facebook letters was, and I'll tell you about that, was magical, but not one thing happens. And I say this, with a lot of sincerity, and no and I don't have any business saying it, but I'm going to say it anyway. But none of it happens without Parker, though. We don't, not one letter, not all the goodness that happened after this happens without. And I think that's important to say, but basically I was so, the letter writing with Dana and the way we trusted each other without even knowing who each, because we trusted each other with a lot of, day-to-day stuff, but also a lot of, I shared with Dana way earlier before I even knew who she was. I didn't know she was this amazing person. I didn't know that, but it was profound to me. Like you said, I looked at my life in a different perspective. I learned so much about her. And I was like, if my life can be changed by this one random girl from Louisiana who I barely remember from 1986, what else is out there? And I became inspired. I was like, I'm going to write everybody. I'm going to write all 580 of those people and see what happens. And I honestly, to God, I did not think I was going to finish it, that I was seriously going to do it. I just went on this journey and ended up, finishing again because of a higher power. It's 100%. I'm just a regular girl trying not to screw up.
How long did it take you to write how many? 500 and what?
580. And I've
How
got
long-
it. It took 21 months. So just shy of 2 years.
And then what happened? Please tell us what happened.
Well, it just blew up my life because, everything from, you find out that everything you assumed was so much you assumed was wrong about people. You reach out to people, the people you didn't think you were going to hear from, those exactly the people you heard back from. People felt so kind of the experience Dana and I had with each other through the writing. If you nail that down to one letter, it's this, you feel the people felt so special for receiving the letters. They felt so, in this world of social media, which is a good and a bad thing, people felt like, oh my gosh, she took the time to write a letter and put a stamp on it. They just felt special. And send those people, it was off the chain how much was shared with me, how much personal information was shared back with me. And what I really came to realize, and I think this is one of the biggest lessons for me that came out of this, is that because I wrote the letters during the 2016 presidential cycle, when on social media there was a lot of division. But what I found out is, and this sounds so simple, but it's so true, if I write you, Susan, or if Dana writes you and you write her back, and let's say you're on different ends, whatever your spectrum is, politically, religiously, whatever it is, and you say, I remember Dana in 7th grade when you sat next to me at lunch and nobody else would, and she says to you, thanks for showing up at my daughter's wedding, or whatever the thing is, you're like, all of a sudden all that stuff disappears. You're like, it still matters, it all still really matters, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. And that's the great message of the Facebook part of this story, the Facebook letters.
Well, and I guess I mean, this is just such an incredible interview, because it's just bringing some things full circle of things that matter to me, and writing is certainly a huge part of it. But I used to teach this course on positive psychology, and I took this 6-month course with Martin Seligman, who is been coined the father of positive psychology, which you guys probably wouldn't know about. It's in our field. But the cool thing about it is that part of that is you had to write a gratitude letter. You had to remember somebody in your life at some point in your life that had an impact on your life in some way. I chose, back in graduate school, I chose my first clinical supervisor. I wrote this very long letter of gratitude, and it had to have a beginning, middle, and end, and really in the way this person impacted you. And the whole point is exactly what you're talking about, is that we as human beings don't know the impact that we have on people through different parts of our life. And it's the power of both the person writing the gratitude letter and what that did for me, and the person who's receiving it. And the power in that is, it's just remarkable. Really, for me, what it comes down to is connecting heart to heart, because we are human beings, each one of us, regardless of our beliefs. And at the essence of who we are is love. And all the other things, the hate, all of that stuff comes from fear. And what you did is you connected with people at that heart level. And when you connect with someone at a heart level, if we allow it, it can open us wide open to receiving that, and to be able to give that. And I've just never heard of a story like this. I mean, the whole thing is so remarkable to me that I'll spend an hour after this interview walking and thinking about it, because just the tenacity and commitment of writing all of those letters alone. The thought of writing 580 some odd letters is just remarkable to me. Because even if you wrote one every single day, you'd only get to 365 in that first year.
Yeah. Well, I started when I got close to because the tipping point was, because I really think 200, this is in the book, 300 letters. Still didn't really think I was going to finish, but then people started, there was an expectation once, because it was a secret at the beginning. Like, I didn't even tell Dana till 100 letters in. I wrote her about it because I didn't want to make another crazy promise to Dana that I wasn't going to follow through on. And Dana, you knew the whole time that you have a good story about me telling you that I was working on something, but I didn't want to tell her I was going to do it, because to me, this, again, it all goes back to Dana and Parker. None of this happens without Dana and Parker. It's just so important to me for people to understand that part of the message, or that part of the story, because none of it would have happened without Dana and I's letters and reconnecting. But as I got to the end, though, I started writing 2 letters a day. 2 or 3 letters. I stopped taking friendship requests and I started writing 2 or 3 letters a day, because I was.
What happened is kind of word got out a little bit, and
that's what happened.
Would message her back, or they would write her back, and so then other people would friend request her because they wanted a letter.
Right. There was a lot of that, and it was funny because when I wrote Dana a letter and said,
"Well, I'm going to friend request you,"
yeah. Oh, get ready.
Get ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wrote her because we weren't doing electronic communication, but these little beautiful stories, though, I wrote her and said, I'm writing everyone because of us. I'm writing. And I told her, I was like, this is our project, Dana. Like, she had she's never had any say in any of this. Like, yes, I want to do that. I'm like, no, this is our project, Dana. This is what we're doing. And I say this all in writing, and knowing her now just makes it so beautiful. But I was like, this is what we're doing. I'm going to write everybody a letter. I've written 100 letters. And so I knew when she read that letter, Susan, because we weren't communicating electronically, but 3 of her daughters friended me that same day. And so then I was like, she read that one, because I knew, because they were like, those girls won their letters, so, and they got their letters. So
they made the cut.
Yeah, they totally made the cut. Yeah. So
I am so sad looking at the time. I think that we might be heading to an hour and a half right now. And
oh Lord.
But I have to start winding down, and I just don't want to. But okay. So this is going to be very hard for the 2 of you to sum this up, I would imagine. But I want to know how each of you has been changed from this experience and this friendship.
It's really easier than you think. It's changed. It's life changing. I mean, we went from people, I literally had to think back to who she was, to she is my best friend on this earth. And that's saying a lot, because I have a lot of really close best friends, but she is absolutely, beyond my husband, the person I trust more in the world. But also, our families are family. My children, she is part of their daily lives as well. And we exchange Christmas. We see each other at least once a month. She'll be here next Friday for the weekend.
How do you far apart? Amy, you're in Texas and you're in Louisiana. How long does it? 4 hours?
4 hours.
4 hours. Mm-hmm.
Door to door. 4 hours.
Do you guys swap? Who goes where? Do you?
Yes.
Yeah, we do. We both come to each other's house. Yeah.
Funny thing last weekend.
Husbands too, or just the 2 of
Yes.
you?
The husbands are best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amy, last week, they have a beautiful home that's perfect for entertaining. And a friend of mine, who all of my friends are now friends of hers. I mean, all of them. And, we've gone through 3 out of my 4 daughters' weddings together. She and her husband have been here to help with every single thing. And so last weekend, a group of my girlfriends drove to her house to celebrate my girlfriend's birthday for the weekend. We had a girls' weekend at Amy's. Her husband and youngest son, who's in high school, drove to my house to hang out with my husband and my son-in-laws and some of our dear friends. And they had a golf weekend here in Lafayette. Yeah.
It's
Their
it's
family.
it's just incredible. I mean, it's for the two of you to make it a connection is one thing, but then the husbands to make a connection, that
Mhm.
takes it to another level. But then the adult children, like it's it really is just one of those things that is just
It
meant to
is.
be. I mean, I'm surprised no one's moved yet. I mean, I'm like,
Well, you
you never know. So
not out of the woods yet.
yeah, it's not, yeah, yeah, it's not out of the woods.
Stay tuned.
what's
Just stay
next?
tuned.
Okay, so tell me what's next. So the book is out. What are you two up to next? Because I can't imagine you're not up to. You're still writing each other. Can't imagine what you possibly have to write about when you talk to each other every day.
Yeah. No, for me, the writing's still an outlet, yeah, for sure, and it's something now, and like you mentioned, Susan, it's, therapeutic for me. I still write her because of her and because of me, to be honest.
Yeah, we're both people of a lot of words.
Mhm.
So we don't ever, run out of things to chat about. But, we did a book tour. We started in May and it was a whirlwind situation all over the country, Oklahoma, Ohio, Texas, Florida. I mean, you name it, Dallas, Houston, Memphis. So we spent the entire summer, we slept in a teepee because I'm like, if we're in Oklahoma, we need to sleep in a teepee. Um, it's fun, do it once, but that's enough. But anywho, so we're still in the midst of the book tour. We had a big December. We had a lot of events in December, and we're still promoting the book. We go and we're headed back. We got invited back to a couple of things in Florida coming up. We travel a lot together. So
Are the
that's
husbands on this book tour with you, or is this just
No,
They were on and
well-
off it. They were on and off it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we had people. My son came a lot, and they helped along the way. So
Our
we were on our
families
own.
for the kickoff, everybody was there, and then our husbands for the like really big events in both of our hometowns. Our husbands were at all of that, but then they kind of also took turns, because they're both really busy working people. And so they took turns, and then Amy's son came with us. It was an absolute blast, and it was exhausting, but we're still doing it. We've got some events in March. We're headed to Denver in June. So,
Yeah.
where are we going? Oh, we are going on an Alaskan cruise for fun in July.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
you guys
But
are
the
amazing?
With
just
the husband.
another quick little story about the book tour is one thing we did on the book tour is we hit, like, I don't know, it's like 20 stops more, I don't know, but when you go to a book signing, sometimes they'll give you like a bookmark or a pin or something. But what we did is, so every time we stopped, everyone who got the book, everybody who went to the book signing got one of these little cards. And so we asked, it had the book on the back. I mean, but we asked everybody, everywhere we stopped, we asked their homework, so they had to go write somebody a handwritten letter, little note. And so we're super excited because we probably gave over 1,000 of these out. And so these little letters, Susan, are out in the universe somewhere, because of our story, to keep our story going. So that's a great story from the book tour.
You guys, I'm so moved. I am so moved by this whole, and it helps too that I just believe in writing so much. So that's
Right.
So that's just so near and dear to my heart, this whole story. But I have another question. So my life changed from my brother's death, and I just feel like he departed to bring my world deeper purpose. Really, I because everything I've done since his death has been about him, including this podcast. And I've met these incredible people like the two of you who have changed my life just through story. I want to know, if Parker were here with us now, what do you suppose your son would have to say about all of this?
Oh, Parker, does say, this is cool. This is neat. It's ridiculously obnoxious, but that he's, proud and happy for me.
Look at who he's touching. Look at who his spirit is so powerful.
Yeah.
That's why all of this is happening.
And that's why I go back to that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
That's the reason for all of this.
Do you
Yeah.
have a picture of him, Dana? Do you have a picture of Parker anywhere?
Yeah, let me see. They're all over. I try not to be obnoxious, I certainly,
I love obnoxious.
yeah, I certainly absolutely do. Here's,
I want everybody, because we're on YouTube. So anyone, let me see a
he's
sweet.
precious.
No, he is so cute. I just knew he was going to have that, like that little smile.
Yep. His little smirk, crooked smirk. He's a beautiful kid.
Okay, so I'm going to just ask this last question. I feel like you guys have answered it through the story alone, but I always ask it because it is grief and loss. And I think that it profoundly changes us in so many ways. Some we recognize, some we don't, I think. But what does self-love mean to you now? Both of you. And I'm just going to put it through this whole experience. What does it mean? What does self-love mean? Dana, let's start with you.
Self-love means allowing myself to be happy and not feeling guilty about it. Allowing myself to have joy and accepting that that's good and not feeling like it shouldn't be.
God, that is so beautiful. I write in my book the first time I laughed after my brother died. I was at a work conference and I talk about the guilt of feeling joy because they want us to do nothing but feel joy, right? Like that's what they want for us. So that is beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Amy, what does it mean to you?
I don't know that I can say anything after what Dana said, Susan. I don't have anything I can say better than that. So I will say, I didn't answer the first question you asked. You can look at the story and you can say, oh, what a great friend Amy Daughters is. And, you were tenacious, you wrote all those letters. I think that the thing people need to realize is that my life is probably the most changed. I have the best friend in the world, this wise, funny, hilarious, great person. And then the support of her entire family. We have just me and my family are just over the top. I mean, it just, you said something at the beginning when I wrote the letters that I wasn't getting anything back. And I know that I did it not to get anything back. I did it because I was supposed to do it 100%. I was supposed to do it. But what we've received, though, because of this connection, because of Parker, is just over the top, life-changing, heart-altering for forever.
I want to thank you both for coming and sharing your hearts, your friendship, your love, your story with me and our listeners. And can you tell us, do you two have like where can people find you? Do you guys have separate channels? Do you have a combined channel with the book? And if it's all too complex, we're going to have it in the show notes anyway. So everybody wants everybody wants to be Amy's friend so we can get a letter.
Retweet. Well, I'll let Amy tell you her information. The way that you can find me, I'm Dana Dugas, Dugas Rivera, Rivera on Facebook, or Dana D. Rivera on Instagram. And that's about it. We've talked about a podcast for a very, very long time, but I'm a full-time PE teacher, people. And those jumping jacks, I'm exhausted by the end of the night. So, but it is something that we have on a back burner, but that's how you can find me. Amy has an author's page. She's official.
I have on Facebook, Amy Wineland Daughters author. And I have a website, amydaughters.com. And that's really the best way. There's, and if you go, that's a great resource because if you go to Dear Dana on my website, there's a lot of background pictures of the two of us. And then my Instagram, which my husband is very proud for me to announce on the podcast, is Smoking Hot Amy S.
Okay, so I can't even take it.
I'm telling you, if you follow her, half the stuff she puts up is stupid, fake, funny stuff.
And that is a great advertisement for my Instagram. So I accept that. And then my personal Facebook is Amy Wineland Daughters. But I'm happy to connect with people in any way. But if you check the website out, there's some great pictures of Dana and I. So
I can't wait. I'm gonna be a voyeur now. I'm just gonna like follow you guys everywhere.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up. And I hope that all of you out there listening feel a little bit fuller today. Here we are, it's a grief and loss podcast. And what I love most is the joy that people bring in to their stories and what can come from deep heartache when we let the joy in, as you said, Dana. So thank you all. Thank you guys. And thank you all for listening. I love you all. And we'll see you here next week. Bye for now.